Hey everyone, wanted to do a new series, so got a bit of the bug to end the MLB season. So for those of you who haven't followed me, I've made some showdown sets back in like oh 09, 10, 11, 12. Uh, Made those for a little bit when I had some time, fell off the wagon. Other people picked it up, making sets and putting it, keeping the showdown community going. Uh, had some time, had a bit of interest. I was like, wanted to show how I would make a showdown set. The tools have gotten a lot better from when I started. So can build a set in a lot less time. So wanted to go through that for you. So bit of the thought process that I go through when I'm making a set. My goal is to make a 600 card set. For those of you who aren't familiar, that's enough for every team to have a 20 player team, 12 batters, four starters, four relievers. Eventually, maybe make a 50 card ish pennant run set where you get some extra people who didn't make the cut who probably would have. That's usually a secondary project there. The big difference for a 20 card set and say the first base set, the 2000 set, you had 15 card teams. So that would have been nine position players, three starters, three relievers. So you couldn't even play the normal rules using just the team from the base set. Maybe they knew they were going to come out with the pennant run set later and they knew that's how they were going to add things. Wizards of the Coast made, making card games like Magic the Gathering that have, four, five, six, seven, eight sets now a year or even more. Uh, Having just a single set of MLB Showdown cards was probably going to be a tough sell for them. Even two sets a year ended up being tough. Obviously, the game's gone defunct since. Uh, what what this is to be more of is a full team set. I think this more as a box set where you can play individual teams. So the reason that I think of this, there are different ways to play Showdown. My favorite way is single season, whole team, right? You're going to play the 20 cards that are given or the 21, 22 cards if a pennant run comes out. And you're playing whole teams. If you can do a whole league, you can do a 30 team league. That's awesome. You get to showcase all the cards. You get to see teams in their entirety, with their strengths, with their warts. I like doing that. It's a great way to recap the whole season. The more sets you make, the more you start to appreciate the value of limitations. Or I have. I don't. Some people like having the all-star teams, but that single season, you're playing the whole team. You're trying to find ways to work around a team's weakness to make something that's competitive. You get to see cards in a certain light that aren't good in other formats. So you might have multi-season whole teams. This might be have a couple different variations if you want to have less limitations. So you might take, the Marlins, but you can use cards for the last 2, 3, 4 years, right? You can make a whole Marlins team. Give yourself a little bit of a restriction that it has to be all from the same team, but you could have multiple years there. Or you might have teams from whole teams from a single year play against each other. Say the World Series champions from the last 8 years being in a 8 team tournament. That might be an example of that. Then there's draft. So this is like team constructed, except for you're getting them folks together. You're actually doing a fantasy draft. You can have a point limit. You cannot have a point limit. I would recommend you do have a point limit. Create some competitiveness around players, and then uh, you get a multi-year draft. You just want to make sure the sets are somewhat compatible. The 2001 sets would be somewhat compatible. The relievers, you're going to end up drafting all the 2000 relievers in that instance, but they at least play together. Whereas like the 2002 sets, like they're not really compatible. It's tough. You can't really play the same game next to each other. That they're just too far apart. Multi-year draft, you're putting multiple sets together. These are different ways to play. You probably have variations that you play with your friends with different limitations or different accessories that are added. Trying to empower as many of those as possible, right? The 600 card set really allows for that. Allows for what I like, which is these single teams, which leads us to, why are we making this again? Another value of this is it's a historical artifact. You get a single season. You get to see people who had exceptional experiences. You have people at different points in their career. You have teams at different points in their life cycle, if they are competitive or non-competitive, rebuilding. You get a bunch of different experiences from this. You get this historical artifact where you get to see people at different points in time. Hopefully, it evokes some emotion. It drums up some nostalgia for you. We want so part of that is players who did things exceptionally. Were they the best player in the league, or did they do something very unusual? So last year, Otani's 50-50 season. I mean, that was historically important. He was by far the best player there. Allows you to year over year, you can chronicle a player's entire career, so you can see how they've gone up, and as they get older, as they typically go down, you can see how they've progressed in different ways. If they've done anything exciting, changed positions, joined a new team. Lets you look at people over time, look at teams over time, and you get to represent a team hopefully accurately. So this is their weakness. They maybe didn't bat very strongly, or they're very slow, or they had a strong starting rotation but a poor bullpen. So represent that, where you look at it and go, this is a representation of this team. I pulled 4 cards up here. I want to go through them. Why I thought these were great cards for Showdown for different reasons. So Mark McGwire, right? For those of us who watched him play, big strengths where he had him, which was strength. A couple weaknesses and not very fast. Not going to get a ton of hits, right? Big walk guy. But this should evoke some emotion, right? This card was based on the 99 season, not the 98 record-breaking season. So this is a bit of a benchmark for us where we can look and go, here's Mark McGwire. He's on all the set artwork. This is one of the key cards of this set. This is how everything is going to be framed. So he's going to be in the tier of the most powerful players, right? He's going to set the standard for on base. This is a player that also represents, when you think of Mark McGwire in 1999, this is what you would think of. Another player should elicit some emotions for people who are tracking the game is Byung-Hyun Kim. So this is that Arizona Diamondbacks, that World Series team. So you look at this is a good representation, in my opinion, of who he was. Could be dominant, that low control, but a dominant chart. Could dominate hitters, could easily 1, 2, 3 an inning, but almost anybody could also get a home run out of nowhere on him. So things could be cruising along. You could get 2 outs very quickly, and you could easily give up a run. Things could go sideways. You could also go on an extended run of things going sideways where he doesn't get the advantage. And now multiple people are getting on, so you could be in trouble. So this is what I think is a great representation of somebody like that, where you have a certain memory of Byung-Hyun Kim. He didn't blow as many saves as you might remember in the World Series, but he did have those World Series moments. So this is what you think of. This is statistically somewhat defensible, but the way you feel about it, the impression of it, very defensible. Another reason to make cards is you just need game pieces. So here's FP Santangelo, not known as a consistent high tier all-star big moment guy. Not he didn't have a home run lead, wasn't a multi-time all-star. We had a good year that defends a card like this. So this card right here is an excellent game piece. It's needed for a certain type of MLB Showdown player. One, probably, it would help a Giants team. Anyone who's playing a single season Giants be great. But for a whole set, for a 600 card set, you want a game piece that's something like this. Somebody who's very fast, gets on base, doesn't cost a lot of points, excellent leadoff hitter for people who are looking for a specific type of player. Somebody who can get on base. I want to get people on base. I want to steal in front of people who have a large single. A lot of that's game piece related. So a set needs some amount of these to be functional, to have players who want different styles of gameplay to have a piece that represents them. And I think a fourth good representation, just to bring up here, is Brett Saberhagen. So this is from the first pennant run set. So Brett Saberhagen, for those who didn't know, was very good with the Royals in a before this card was made. One of the best pitchers at his time. This card is representing him very late in his career. I believe that they gave him a bit of a nudge based on his reputation. So this is something I think that we'll explore as we go through different cards. But I think this is important for representing somebody's career, where you're saying this is a person who at one point was in the top echelon of pitchers. They are not that person now. How can we give them a little nudge here and there to represent them, historically, legacy wise, but also represent them within the range of how they performed during the time period that the card is. So this is a very interesting uh, card here. Also, for people who come along who maybe weren't paying attention to different people of different eras, maybe they've just gotten into baseball, they're a younger player. So, for me, I rooted for the Red Sox, or I root for the Red Sox. I knew Brett Saberhagen from his time then, from watching him. He wasn't excellent, but you see something like this, and it's like, oh, is he maybe better than I remember him being? So, and then you start doing research. I actually pulled out the MLB almanac, the big paper book before we had Baseball Reference. And you go in, and you learn about somebody like a Brett Saberhagen, and we learn, oh, this guy was, this is something. And then he didn't just get taken deep by Brendan Fraser. He was a quality player. Really think this is an example, a 4 card summary of different ways that you can create interesting showdown cards that go into a set. And all these things are going to mix together when you make your set. When I make my set here. So this is going to be things that go into the rationale. So yeah, I made a bunch of sets, made 5, 6 sets, full sets, and then some partials of different ones along the way. And these old ways, right? So back in '09, what that meant is you took a lot of Excel sheets, right? So you reverse engineer some of the metrics based on the 2000 or 2001, whatever you're trying to be compatible with. We end up with a bunch of tables and some ratios, not as advanced as they could have been. You end up finding some statistics that are kind of end up being meaningful to you. Hey, this is a meaningful threshold. This isn't a meaningful threshold. You end up with a bunch of Google Sheets or Excel sheets. And you start plugging away, and you end up putting things in. A lot of manual data entry, And then you're compiling it. And you're trying to look over this data to make, to see what's going on, see if you have a lot of duplication in certain ways. And then even with all that math, having to put a Photoshop together. As you can tell, this is mine. Matt, who's been in the community for a while, had come along. This is from the first set I had made. This is miserable. You can see that I, are clipping things very crudely. Other people had come along with much more skills, like Matt on later sets, and made things look much better. Not only mimicking the original Showdown set, but even come up with different templates for some interesting, mechanics. We had done a split. People had split left right splits that were interesting. But this is all that goes in. You have to actually get the cards out there, because just playing Excel sheets versus each other isn't as exciting. If you actually see them, if it looks like a baseball card, this was more exciting. So this all went into it. So this, my wife had asked me, she's like, roughly how much time did it take you to make a set? And it was, maybe for 500 hours to all in to make a set initially. And the only reason I'm beginning this project now is it doesn't take nearly that long. So I know, because I'm a lot further along in this process than I'm showing right now, but wanted to go through where we've come from. So where we're going. One of the big tools that helps cut this down a ton is the showdownbot.com. So Matt Gula, big shout out there. I wouldn't even attempt this project if this thing didn't exist. So love playing around on this thing. If you haven't gone there, go there. Does a great job. He's got his GitHub. You can look at all of his methodology. So whether you agree, disagree with what he wants to do, with the way the cards come out, they're all gonna like it's all there for you. You can look at it, you can figure out why things turn out the way they are. Not for profit, don't print these or sell these cards, please. This is for uh, personal use. Glad probably have that disclaimer on every single video I do here. Don't want to get anyone in trouble. Don't want people to get themselves in trouble. Don't want to get Matt in trouble. But I want to shout it. I mean, this is labor of love there. Amazing tool. Go play around with it. I'll do some videos where I'm actually making cards live. You'll see how I tinker with a few things. Want to go through a couple of the pros compared to what I was doing? I'm much faster. I think I made this whole set in maybe 50 hours, give or take. So much quicker, so much quicker. Can't even again, I wouldn't even attempt this project with where I'm at in life. I know what it takes to make a set. There have been times where I've half started sets and even committed to, try to do sets with other people where they're taking on some of the load and I didn't end up carrying as much weight as I should have. Uh, with this, much faster, much more reliable. You can just push through stuff very quickly. Top-notch final product. You'll see some of the final cards. Amazing. Absolutely beautiful. They give you plenty of flexibility. You can change how you want things to look. You get the Photoshop, the cutting out. You're not doing all this Photoshop clipping, which took hours and hours. Your cards all have a consistent methodology. You make cards, they're going to be within a range. Uh, you're not going to have things that aren't defensible on why you ended up with where you did. Not that you won't make it if you end up making your own set. You'll make exceptions as you should to achieve your goals, but everything is going to be built within a consistent framework. Uh, and you're flexible to customize it for your own set. So it's not spitting out one card, you give them five. You have different ways to tinker with things to get a card where you want it. So you are flexible. Um, from every cloud, a little rain much must fall here. There are a couple cons, things that, if I had made this with infinite resources, neither of those are true. What I would have maybe liked, and maybe we can find ways to get these things interjected or find workarounds. You can't line item edit. That's the first one. That's the thing that comes across. You can't line item edit or maybe put caps on different things. Where you say, hey, maybe like max it, don't let this person go above a 8 on base for whatever reason, or limit this. I want to edit this person's fielding specifically for a reason, right? You just don't have that capability. There are workarounds. You can get it closer through different ways, but you're not going to be able to just go in and punch in data and make cards. That's going to be one of the cons. If you're looking for that, this isn't what that tool is in its current state. You might disagree with the methodology. So I have how I created the sets. I think it's defensible. I think it's in line with the spirit of the 2001 sets, to the ability that that's possible. I have some of my own thoughts in there that are different. So you may have your own methodology. You may think that Colby, uh, you have your thought process, but I don't think that's how this should be calculated. Of course, part of baseball, part of Showdown, certain metrics are subjective, whether it's fielding, which fielding can mean a lot of different things, like corner outfield, for instance, like that can be arm, that can be range, that can be both together. Uh, what is fielding there? You have to make a decision. And then there's the eye test of it a player may have a reputation. People may win awards that you feel are undeserving. So you remember, oh, this person's a Gold Glover. Derek Jeter, for instance, right, would win the Gold Glove, but notoriously had limited range, and maybe average to but not an exceptional, not a say Rafael Furcal arm, but he would win a Gold Glove because he was very good at not committing errors. And depending on what you value for something like shortstop defense, you would end up with a wildly different score. If you had 20 Showdown players make a Derek Jeter card, in the mid 2000s, and they were creating their own fielding for him, I think you'd end up with some wildly different scores. So speed, also a very common metric. That's, how do you calculate speed? How do you take someone who's a say mediocre straight line speed, but very aggressive. Somebody like Bryce Harper last night, just when I'm filming this, got thrown out at home plate in a playoff game. He was very aggressive, trying to go home. Uh, so that's an example where he's aggressive. He's making these plays. How would you score that? Also has taken extra bases that other players wouldn't. So how do you count that? Or is it just straight line physical ability? And then small critique. I mean, because it takes multiple minutes to Photoshop somebody properly. Some players are just they're going to show up. They're going to have the wrong team. There may not be a photo of them. May not be a photo you like or that's appealing. You can clip your own, but the default ones are not. You can add your own as well. The default ones are not always going to be perfect. So something that you got to monitor. All these critiques, super minor, awesome tool. Use it any way that you're able to support them. Do that. Don't get them in trouble. So there's my dog. I'm not gonna do a ton of editing on this, by the way, guys. What you see is what you get. So all the pauses and all that. I'm not gonna Toastmaster, remove all my turn of phrases. It's gonna be a little bit of a stream of consciousness here. You're gonna find that I'll maybe contradict myself at certain points. I might ramble, that I might share stories that are tangential. Like that's all gonna be part of the experience here. Real quick, here is roughly what the process is. Don't hold me to that. This is what I'm gonna be going through. I'll be going through uh this process. I'll give my thoughts and to my best ability brain dump out there so people can hear it and they can make decisions based on whether they want to make their own card or they want to use this set or make their own with their own methodology. This is just me putting this out there as a bit of an artifact so people have it, giving something back here and having a little fun, sharing stories. So we'll be going through this. If you see something you like, just know that might be, it might be coming later. It might not have been recorded yet. Here's the process for you. If there's anything you'd like to see, put it in the comments. Feel free to track this. I'll try to make it on YouTube where it's all kept in a playlist so you can listen to these sequentially in the background at work.